Going to open up with Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Brian, just to get this out of the way, I'm just curious about the timeline with Tony. When you were made aware of that decision, how that came about?
I was made aware last week, and so now we're into the process of identifying replacements. Excited about the group that we've already identified, and going to be thorough in the process. I think the good news is we're not in a situation where we have to make a quick decision based on, recruiting or the portal or anything like that. So, I talked to the running backs, they're great. They're actually going to be, part of the process. I'd like for the part of the interview process for the running backs to meet the candidates. Obviously, ultimately, I'll make the decision, and Chip will be a huge part of it. But the input of the running backs will be important as well. But they've been great, and it was actually fun today. I took the running backs and coached them out there today, so that was fun. And we had a really good practice.
Was that decision sprung upon you, or was that something that you kind of had an idea that maybe it was coming down the line?
I didn't know for sure until I was actually told, but now the focus is about, trying to find the right person. I think it's the best running back room in the country right now. And so I think it's an exciting job, and the candidate pool has been excellent.
Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, as you get into this week of practice, how do you break up the quarterbacks differently? I mean, now the pads are on, now that there's maybe a little bit more to learn this week. How do you separate those guys, and is there a plan for that you can let us in?
Yeah, we rolled them again today. We were on and off the field in less than an hour and a half because it's our first practice back coming off of spring break, first day in pads. So a lot of things here that led us to believe the best thing to do is to kind of be on and off in an hour and a half. The next two practices will be longer and more physical. And so, Chip and I are going to get together on that, figure out how we break down those reps, but there'll be a lot more reps the next couple practices. We're still only 3 practices in, so we just want to roll them as much as we can, get as many reps as we possibly can. But like you said, as we start getting into the heart of practice, we'll start to divvy up those reps the best we can.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North, and the podcast.
Right. Just trying to get, lay of the land on the offensive line, especially on the right side. How fluid are things there with Fryer and Montgomery and Tegra and all those guys? Are you kind of letting them all play and see what shakes out, or how's that go?
Yeah, today was the first day in pads, so it's hard to evaluate anything until you get the pads on. And, we're going to evaluate that right side really hard, really close, like you're saying. I can't say we're in a different place now than we were about a month ago because there really isn't enough evaluation to go off of. But we are trying to figure out what that is. Now, I will say Josh Fryer had one of the best off seasons of anybody in the building. Now we had some bunch of guys who had really good off seasons, but he stuck out. So if he can continue to stay in the shape that he's in right now, I think he's going to have a really good spring and take that next step. If that's the case, then the big spot will be at right guard. And, Luke's in there now, but we got a bunch of guys, moving through there. But if Josh can, possibly move into guard and then Tegra moves in, if Tegra makes a push, then that'd be great as well. So like you said, we have a few guys in there, Austin's, moving it right now. He's at left guard. We could move him over to right if we needed to. So it's a very tight competition in there. I'm hoping that we have, some clarity as we, get towards the end of spring. And then it continues into the preseason. But I guess the good news is we do have some guys with experience along the line, between Donnie and Josh. They both have played a bunch, and Carson's played, and so has Seth. So, hopefully in the next week or so, we got a little bit more to go off of.
With Josh Fryer and Tegra and Luke Montgomery, and you kind of just touched on it there, do you view all 3 of those guys as guys who can play either guard or tackle as you try to figure out how that will shake out?
I think so. I think that Tegra is probably more of a tackle than he is a guard. He has played some guard, so he could do that. But both Josh and Luke have both played guard and tackle. So we're going to try to figure out who the best 5 are. We've always done that. And figure, who plays the tackle best, who plays the guard best, and go from there.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, Chip hasn't been here long and only 2 practices while Tony was still here, but I'm sure there was plenty of meetings and stuff like that. What's your level of concern now that some of the stuff that Chip's implemented, granted it's early, will now be shared with your rivals?
Yeah, we're nowhere near where we're going to be as we head down the road. This is, that was 2 practices in the spring, and a lot of what we did was what we've done in the past, and then we sprinkled in a couple things that Chip's done. But there's just so much more that he has that's out in front of us. But I think more importantly, like this could look differently moving forward in terms of our offense. Just how we're doing things, who's in what spots. We have really good receivers, we have really good tight ends, we have good running backs, but ultimately it comes down to what the quarterback can do well, the types of throws that he can make. The run game will look different. It just will. And that's a long time and a long journey to get to next November. So, I just think there's going to be so many twists and turns along the way that I think, and now with the quarterback communication, being able to use that, which we've utilized the first 3 practices, that's been good. That certainly allows us, more flexibility as we call plays.
At linebacker, it seems like Cody Simon, from talking to James Laurinaitis and Coach Knowles, seems like Cody's locked in. What about the other linebacker spot? Sonny, C.J. Hicks, Gabe Powers. How do you feel about those guys?
Very competitive in each team drill. You see us for the first, we call them racks, in 11 personnel, and so then you'll see nickel in the game there. You're seeing a lot of guys rotate in and out around there. But then when you put 12 in the game, and we get into base personnel on defense, now you're seeing Sonny do a little bit of that Sam linebacker, so he has some flexibility there. And again, this is another one. I don't have a ton of updates because today was the first quick day in pads, but you are seeing those guys learn those positions, and then hopefully in the next week or so you're seeing progress in certain areas, and then Jim and the defensive staff will sit down and say, okay, here's where we need to invest our time moving forward. And these are big decisions in the offseason. The season's a long way away, and it's a long way away to get to where we need to be. But the decisions that are made over the next month or so are going to be critical in terms of the development of our team.
Tony Gerben, Buckeye Huddle.
Right, back to the helmet communication stuff. Can you just explain how you were doing that, how it's working, and who's talking into who's here, basically?
Yeah, so they're allowing us 3 devices in the helmets per practice, which is a little bit difficult because we have more than 3 quarterbacks. And then we also have the defensive side of the ball. So I wish there was more available, but there isn't. So right now we're working with 3. And, right now we've worked with the offensive side. They're going to be practices where we give the 3 devices to the defensive side so that Jim can work with that. But, it's been good to kind of work through that. Chip dealt with it when he was in the NFL. And so he has experience in that. The easy thing is when you're in a huddle, you just call the play, the quarterback calls the play, and that's simple. But there are other ways to build in different kind of hybrids between signals and calling it into the quarterback. There's verbal, and then there's the physical signals. So we'll use a bunch of different ways to do it. We'll use wristbands, we'll use signals, we'll huddle. We'll try to find as many ways to be creative in that area. And it's something new in college. So each day we're learning a little bit more about it. We're getting feedback from the quarterbacks and from the players.
Like today, it would be just the 3 quarterbacks would have it, and then
You got it.
Maybe Thursday, Cody and Gabe and.
You got it right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So that the tricky thing we learned early on was we had 2 huddles going on early on. I think you guys were at practice the one day we were doing formations, and so Chip was calling it in to the guys in the 1 huddle, and poor Lincoln, he's got it in his head, and I'm calling him the plays, and there was a voice in his head. He thought he was going crazy for a second. So he said, "Coach, I got to take this helmet off." So we learned that we can only have 1 quarterback getting a call at once. But no, I think the good thing about it is the quarterbacks are hearing the call. So if let's say Will's up there or Devin's up there, Lincoln's getting the call in his head. He's also seeing the signal.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
A little bit more on the quarterback. Just who's running the room right now as you're trying to do it? Who you're going to find to run the room permanently?
Running backs? Me. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever worked with a running back room before?
No.
What's that experience been like?
It's been awesome. It's been great. It's been great. Yeah, I think we went in there and put up the first play, and the first play I think I went off for 20 minutes on 1 play. I think some of the guys are looking around like, oh boy, but it was great. I think it's going to be good for them to see it through the eyes of a quarterback. I think it's really good for them in the passing game. I think it's really good for them overall to understand from a high view on things. So we've had great meetings. We have a very intelligent group in that room. They're really good. They're diligent about taking notes. Again, I think it's the best running back room in the country. So whoever we hire is going to have an unbelievable opportunity and a great group of guys.
And obviously, Tony was probably one of the more valuable recruiters for you, especially the way he recruited. How much is that a part of the process of finding someone who can replace that element that he brought to the table?
Yeah, I think when you're bringing anybody into the program, you're trying to figure out, what is their expertise. I shared this with the team. I think it's important. We want to be the best team we can possibly be next year. We have a bunch of talent, but it's not about individuals. It's about the team. You need each other in order to reach a goal. That's what's special about football. So, the running back coach has to be an expert at coaching the running backs. You have to bring value every day. When you stand in front of a group of men, especially a group like we have in that room, your competency has to be at a high level. When you stand in front of anybody in this building, you got to know what you're talking about. And it's about building trust. And you do that through competency, through connection with somebody, and then your character and who you are as a person. And so when you have trust, you can really, develop guys at a high level. Now, the recruiting part is very, very important. And that's about building relationship and building trust through the recruiting process. Would we like somebody that has recruited at a high level already here? Yeah, I think that would be ideal. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, that's going to make the best player the best coach for that position. I think about myself coming in here. I had never recruited at a place like Ohio State before. But it worked out for me. I think some other guys have been in that same situation before. Brian Hartline had never recruited at this level before. He played at this level, but he didn't recruit here. And so while it's good to have the experience, we want to make sure we get the right guy. And we're being very, very thorough in the interview process. We're going to ask a lot of questions. We're going to take as much time as we need and make sure we get the right guy.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
On the heels of Jake Diebler becoming a head coach for the first time, you did it 5 years ago here. Very few people have that opportunity. What is it like, especially doing it at a place like Ohio State for the first time?
Yeah, congratulations to Josh and his family. I was able to go over to the press conference, and I thought he did a great job stepping in a tough spot this year, and excited to see what that looks like moving forward. But I think what you have to do is you just have to trust, who you are. You have to learn from your experiences. And you aren't starting from scratch. I think that's the thing as I look back on, that experience for me. There was guys on staff that were already here. But then there were other things you had to change. There was already players there in place that you had to continue what was working, but you had to identify the things you had to improve on. And so enhancing the things that are going well, but fixing the things that you need to fix are important. And I think every year I learn more and more about, what are the right things that need to get fixed and what are the right things that need to be enhanced. Not everything needs to be changed, but certain things do. And then having the courage to make those changes year in and year out and follow through and be strong is important. But ultimately it comes down to relationships again, and building relationships with your staff, giving them great direction as a leader. You're not an assistant coach anymore. You're the head coach. So your role has changed. And it's important to make sure you're communicating at a high level, giving direction to everybody, and then making sure everybody's accountable to do their job at a high level.
Austin Ward, the podcast.
Right. This was another offseason where you seemed intent on taking a step back from a position to be the CEO, and then 2 practices later, you're jumping in with the running backs. Can you just not quit, or what?
I thought it's just a great opportunity to spend some time with those guys. And so I'm going to do that this week. And, we have a bunch of guys who can help. And actually, being at 9, we're able to, move somebody in. We'll have Rob help out a little bit, Tony Johnson help out a little bit. So that's good. But I think anytime I can do that where I, spend a little time, even just a week with those guys, I think it's great. I'm still able to stay in special teams. I jumped into, some of the D-line meetings last week. I'll do the same thing in another week, jump into some other meetings. But the more I can sit in on those types of meetings, the better. In our off day, we switch between offense and defense. So while the offense is lifting, the defense will be meeting, and then vice versa. So that allows me to go over and be a part of that. So it's fun. I like to do, be a part of, the different position groups, because I think, again, that builds trust. You're getting in front of those guys, and I think that builds a stronger connection with them. And so, I kind of jumped at the opportunity.
Setting aside, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you. Maybe the COVID year was so unique, but every offseason has thrown weird challenges, curveballs at you. Does this one seem more chaotic than others you've been through? I don't know if you could rank them or not, but it feels like this is carried all the way over into March with things for you to deal with.
Yeah, I don't. I don't look at it that way. I think early on, I think I said this to Jerry because we talked about this a lot. Each year a different challenge comes, but that's the job. And you don't know what it's going to be, but to think that you're just going to have a normal off season that's cool, calm and easy waters, that's just not going to work. It's not going to happen at Ohio State. And so, that's just part of the job is adapting and trying not to, overthink it all or caught off guard is, you try to do the best you can do, plan ahead and having contingency plans in place and do what's right. But at the same time, you have to adapt to what you got. And I think, we've done that. I think we've been aggressive, but I also think we've done what's right. But again, I just go back to this whole off season to me is about the guys who decided to come back. That to me was really important for a lot of reasons. It talks about our culture. It talks about our team, but I think it's important to have guys who not only are talented, but have played a lot of football before. And, I thought we got a little bit more veteran last year with Tommy coming back, Cade coming back, but now to have all these guys coming back as seniors is significant. And then we added and filled some holes, made some changes with the staff. So it's exciting, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of individuals. Now we got to come together as a team because ultimately the best team is going to win the championship next year.
Adam King, WBNS.
Going off the crazy off season and the running back change, how much does it matter to this team and to the players, the destination of where Tony Alford went? And how did you handle that? Obviously losing a coach, but losing it to your rival.
No, I mean, our guys are, we say that the term all the time, win the moment. It's like, you just got to focus on right now. That doesn't matter. That game's going to come and there'll be a team over there and we got to win the game. What matters is, our guys and, these guys are excited to see who the next coach is going to be, but they've been great. They've been positive and like I said, they're going to be a part of it. I wanted to, just because, like you said, in March, we're 2 practices in, it's spring break, there's a change. I felt it was important for them to have some feedback on this and bring them a part of it. And I think they appreciated that.
When you look at this running back room, you said it's the best in the country. It also is one of the most veteran when you look at Trey and Quinshawn and even Dallin. How much does that help you in this moment to know those guys, they're not new, they're not looking for as much guidance as some younger running backs?
Yeah, I think it helps. I think, for the younger guys, it probably hits a little harder just because, they are younger. As you get older, you get a little bit more callous, you get a little bit more independent. But you still have relationships, and they're understanding that's part of the profession, but they've been good. And I think they, Trey, said it the best is that, you rely on each other, and then the brotherhood is strong here. And that's something we preach a lot is, the relationships with each other, the love for each other. And ultimately that's, what, the power of the unit is all about. And so those guys in that room, they're strong and they're going to rely on each other.
Ryan, how much do you need the second group of defensive tackles to step up this spring? Knowing that Tyler and Ty are kind of set right there, where they're going to be.
It's one of the focuses, I would say. Just spotlights right there to figure out who those guys are that are going to step up. There's a handful of guys in there that either came in last summer, like Jason Moore, or Will Smith didn't have a spring. Caden McDonald. Hero Canoe's now been here for a little while. I mean, there's a handful of guys in there that now this is their spring to step up. It's a very, very important spring to build depth in that area, like you mentioned.
Do you think that Jason and Caden showed in year one the capabilities of taking that step into the spring, and what do you need to see from those two in particular that lets you know that they're ready for a role in a big game in November? Right.
The talent is there, that's for sure. You bring guys in at times and you say, well, maybe that's not the right fit and maybe they're not talented enough. That's not the case. They're definitely talented enough. Do they build the skill that they need and the discipline to get there? That's up to them. And so we'll know because, we have a good offensive line and they're going to challenge each other every day and they're going to have great opportunity this spring. So we'll get a good feel for that. They're going to have a lot of opportunity. They got to show up and produce. That's just the bottom line. And I think that's part of maturing as a player. You practice every day and it kind of, you check the box. Okay, I got through that practice, but eventually you got to start making plays. Like you said, in a game, you got to start doing your job. You got to grade out a champion. You got to make TFLs. You got to do your job at a high level and be accountable to the guy next to you. So it's just more and more of an emphasis on that. You're not just out there practicing. You're out there to win a job. So we'll evaluate it. We'll grade it. And then again, by the end of the spring, hopefully we identified some really good depth there, the guys that we can count on to go in a game, because we're going to need it. It's a long season, as we know, especially next year. It was going to be a new challenge for us. But, we're going to have to play 5 deep, maybe 6 deep throughout the year. That's just a reality. So we need those guys, and so it is a big spring for them.
Rob Muller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, you and Chip are so aligned. You're friends. You think alike. He seems like the perfect hire. And yet, Bill O'Brien was your first choice. Can you just talk? Was that a timing issue? How did that play out? Because, Chip seems perfect, and yet it was Bill.
The way that I did it, and it's kind of the same way that we're doing it with the running backs, is like right out of the gate, I tried to identify an A-list. Guys that I felt like, all right, if we can hire guys, and, Bill and Chip were both on that list. And I felt like if we could get one of those, then we were in really good shape. And then there was a B list. And then, there was kind of a C list. And I felt like if we got to the C list, I was probably just going to go back to calling plays. I wasn't going to force it at that point. But it was more of a timing issue the first time around with Chip. And so, Bill became available, made that move, and felt like the timing was right on that. And then, that changed and then went right back to Chip. And the timing, even just a few weeks when you're dealing with all of that, comes into play. And, I think for Chip as well, there was a lot on his mind, and so he had to kind of sort through all that. And then by the time, Bill had left, I think he was in a different place based on a lot of things. So it wasn't like I ranked them in that order. I kind of put them in, hey, this is the A list right here. If we can get one of those, man, we're where we need to be. And I'm kind of doing the same thing with the running backs right now.
And Chip, he's kind of known or has been known as this offensive mastermind. And sometimes maybe those guys get short shrifted on how tough they are. How much toughness does he bring to this? Put your hand in the dirt and go, because I think there can be a perception of, they just like to kind of, have fun on offense and guru it.
Yeah, I think, part of it is how you run the football. And he's done that historically year in and year out. He knows how to run the football. He has a heavy hand in the run game, how the offensive line blocks, how the running backs run. If you sit in here like I did the other day in a unit meeting and he goes through a few of the runs, you'll see right out, it's easy to see not only how talented he is, but what he demands in terms of toughness and physicality. And I think, the proof is in the fact that he's been able to run the ball wherever he's been. And so I think that's the way he is. That's the way he's always been.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, where do you feel like you're at the tight end position right now, and how many guys feel like you have ready to play there right now?
I think G. Scott's had a really good offseason. I think Jelani, Will, Bennett, those guys are going to have to really step up the next couple of weeks to figure out, who's going to be able to play. G has played in games. I think he's had a really good offseason. I think he's going to have a really good spring. I think he's right where he needs to be. He still has to go do it, but Cade took up a lot of reps. He ate up a lot of play, and so we need those guys, all of them. But I'm excited about G's play so far. Again, not much to go off of, but I think he's had the right offseason. He's got the right approach. His leadership and just demeanor has been excellent. Attitude's been off the charts. I think he's poised to have a really good year. Has to go do it. But then the rest of those guys, now they got to step up. We got to figure out what we can do there. And so we have been spending a little bit of time in 12 personnel to see, get those guys out there, get some reps. We'll start grading them here soon. We'll find out, but we got enough talent in the room. It's not like, we look in the room and say there's not enough guys. We got to go find somebody in the portal. That's not the case. I think we got to go develop them, but probably no more here again in a couple of weeks.
Wide receiver, what kind of growth have you seen from Carnell and Brandon in their second spring, and how is Jeremiah come along so far?
Yeah, Brandon came in the summer. So, it's just that, you're a few months behind. Now this is his first spring. He's going through it. I think you're seeing a different player. His body's changed completely from where it was last summer. When he's, in the right shape, he's really talented. He got great, short area quickness. He's got just a competitive fire in him. He was really good in winter workouts. A couple of things he got called down on the mat. One, just fierce competitor, football player, tough. The guy you want on your team, that's Brandon Innes. And so now it's time for him to go play here this spring. But he's had a great offseason. Carnell is really, had a really good offseason as well. I think the sky's the limit for Carnell. He's extremely talented. He's been here now a year, so he went through the spring, went through a season. Now this is his second spring, so this is not new to him. Based on what we saw coming off of last year, where he's at right now, he's right on pace with some of those other guys. So, but some other guys have stepped up as well. You're seeing Bryson Rodgers step up. We need Jaden Ballard to step up in a big way. He's got to be a contributor now going into the season for us. Certainly Jeremiah has flashed. And so, it's been good to see some of those younger guys get out there, but we're going to have to build depth in that room. Mecca's the leader in there, and he's obviously done a great job, and he's healthy again, which is great. So it's going to be a good group, but we need to continue to push that depth, kind of like we talked about with the defensive tackles.
Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
In general, how do you think of the factors of stability and tenure on the staff? Is that always a good thing to have that longevity? Is there a point for people when it gets stale, and do you hope that resolve itself on its own just through natural attrition, or is that something you have to be conscious of as you're making decisions?
I think it's a great question. It's something that I think about now going into this year. For me, every year as a head coach, you learn more and more, and you ask that question a lot. When is the continuity, or do you need to make changes in certain areas? And the best you can do is evaluate it year in and year out and figure out what's right. And you don't want to do a complete overhaul either. Especially when you get to be a play or two or a drive away from where you need to be. If things are just completely off, then you got to do, some major overhauls, but just moving that compass a little bit sometimes can get it right. And I think that's the art of being a coach and trying to identify what those things are. But, sometimes it is good to make those changes. Sometimes it is good to have a little bit of a change of scenery, for folks, but it all depends on who that person is and the situation.
When a guy's been here for 9 years and leaves from Michigan, how does that not feel like a betrayal in this building? I know fans kind of feel that way. Do you feel that way?
Well, everybody has to make decisions, for them and for their family, and so we try not to focus on that. We know that we're going to play the schedule we play, and that game's going to come, and there'll be a team on the other side with a bunch of coaches, and we'll go from there. So we're not going to try to focus too much on that, but more about our team, and that's what it's going to come down to. But like you said, people have choices to make in their life, and they go and they have their careers. So, and I think for us, it's finding the right mix of guys, the right mix with the staff, the right mix of guys on the team. And, you just push forward from there, knowing that there's going to be twists and turns along the way.
Matt Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Any chance you want to tell us who that third A-list was?
No.
Jack Sawyer, you've talked a lot about the guys coming back. He seems to be kind of the ringleader of that group, or at least was last year. And then the way he finished the season,
Yep.
the leadership plus the
Right.
kind of coming together. How much can he make an impact next year, both on and off the field?
Yeah, he broke down the team today after practice. I think, like you said, in the way he played in that bowl game, he had some demeanor to him. I thought he played his best football at the end of the season. But more importantly, it was saying, I'm coming back, got unfinished business. Let's go, boys. Let's rally around this thing. To me, that was a sign of great leadership. That's something I won't forget. And, that has a chance. Those kind of things have a chance to leave legacy behind. And being an Ohio guy, being from Pickerington, and he was one of the first guys to jump in early on. And he helped recruit this class, and so he's a leader. And he's only getting better every year, and he's got to be the tip of the spear for our defense.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
All right, you talked about Kenyatta Jackson last offseason as an NFL guy, someone that has a lot of prospects. Up and down season last year, he said that you helped him through that and kind of get over that hump at part of last year. What have you seen from his progress and kind of working through that?
Kenyatta has so much talent, and it was great to see he and Paris, his freshman year, kind of work with each other. They would come after practice, they'd sit on the bench, they'd talk about the things that they did in practice against each other, and I think he learned from that. But it's the consistency. We believe in Kenyatta, and when Kenyatta's believing in himself and he's positive, boy, he can be one of the best players on that field. And so he's growing every single year and building more and more confidence by doing it on the field. And I think the guys in the room are helping him. But it's like anything else. When you're trying to get to places that are hard, when you're trying to climb that mountain to be the best in the world at what you do, like you said, an NFL player, you need the guys around you. And I think there's guys in that room. I think there's, coaches in the strength and conditioning area, the weight room, being the head coach, it takes a village. And so maybe some things that, you're not really innate at or good at, you can learn from somebody else. And I think Kenyatta's continually, learn to open up and garner things from different people within the building to go reach his goals, because he can be as good as he wants to be. And so the challenge I know Coach Jay has put out for him is that consistency and believing in himself. And if, one bad play doesn't make it a bad practice, and one bad practice doesn't make you a bad player. You're going to have good plays and bad plays. It's like riding a bike. When you do something for the first time, you're going to fall off the bike. You got to get back on that bike and learn. And how quickly you get on that bike and drive is going to separate, how long it's going to take you from the next guy to go be great. But he has all the talent in the world, and he's working hard on that discipline and skill.
Ron, you guys don't have a person on your assistant staff who's has the title of special teams coordinator this year, first time in your tenure. Who's their primary point person for that?
Yeah. So what we've done there, Matt Guerreri and James are going to work on punt and kickoff, and then Keenan Bailey and Brian Hartline will do punt return and kickoff return. I'm going to be very much involved with that. And then Rob Keys is one of our analysts, and he's allowed to coach the coaches. And so he can really do a lot of the legwork in terms of off the field stuff, breaking down the film, helping get things organized for us as we get into the meetings. But if you sat in one of our punt meetings, Matt Guerreri is running that entire meeting. We get into punt return. Keenan will be up there. He'll be up there with a little bit of help from Brian Hartline. But I'm going to be right there for every meeting and being a part of it. But Rob is kind of the guy behind the scenes who's going to organize everything for the coaches.
It's different than what you've done in the past. What ultimately led you to want to do that? Why is it just you have resources committed to other position groups? Did you like the structure for special teams dividing up?
Yeah, quite honestly, I made a bunch of calls to a bunch of coaches, and one in particular that hit with me was when I talked to Coach Tressel, and he shared with me that he did this when he was here. He assigned one of the special teams to each of the coaches, and it got great buy-in from the players because as a player, you want to really impress your position coach. You want to impress your coordinator. You want to impress the head coach. Sometimes the special teams coordinator can be a little bit low down the line. But when your position coach is up there and he's coaching special teams and being the head coach, being very much a part of it with them, it provided a lot of buy-in from the players. And it really, made sense to me. And so we're doing it a little bit different than that. But that kind of resonated with me, and I thought that was the right.
Tim May show and let him enroll.
Thanks, Jared. Bunch of questions, but I'll just ask a couple. When you walked into that running backs room meeting for the first time, did you prepare like I'm going to wow with something? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, did you? Because you didn't want them to think, well, this is just a substitute teacher.
No, that's I'm pretty sure they didn't think that. No. Being a part of the offense, I think that they like to see it from the quarterback's eyes and just why we call things, how we call things, learning things conceptually, and so no, it's been good. I think they're enjoying. You have to ask them, but I think they enjoy a different point of view, different perspective.
And the microphone, the speakers in the helmets and stuff.
Yeah.
You played quarterback. Do you like the idea that y'all will be huddling a lot more? I mean, just from a quarterback standpoint, what does that do for the quarterback in terms of, grabbing everybody's attention in the huddle? I don't know if y'all will muddle huddle or what you'll do.
Yeah, all the above. But I think the positives of the huddle, like you said, is the quarterback can look guys in the eye. There's a little bit of that. You break in the huddle, you run a line of scrimmage together. There's a little bit of that feel to it. I always like the no huddle because I think the pace of game, it was good for the game of college football. It just, things were moving quickly. It was fun to watch. It was exciting. The ball was moving all over the place. But, the whole, the signal stealing and all those types of things have made it hard to do that. And so, this allows us an opportunity to be more creative in those areas. We'll still continue to have a bunch of variety with it to make sure that we can do it. But it is different now because you're going to see more teams huddle. And then with the clock moving after a first down, as we talked about last year, I think the combination of those two, because it's going to be a lot easier to huddle now with the earpiece. So I think, again, you're just going to see a lot less plays. In our room over here, we have a breakdown of, how many third down calls we have every game, how many red zone calls. And I think the first year in 17, we were like at 83 to 85 per game. I think after this year, we're close to 65. So we're almost down, I think, 20 plays since 17. And that's significant. It's just a different game. That's 2 or 3, 4 drives. So it just is what it is. You got to adapt with it. But I think those are the changes you're going to see.
And really quick, there was a little video came out yesterday or a couple of days ago, but Jack Sawyer's lobbying Chip Kelly, find him a place on offense, get him a touchdown, things like that. Caden Curry got into the game with you guys last year. Is the spring when you kind of look at those kind of things? And, for example, specifically Jack Sawyer, what would he bring? Because he told Chip to ask you about him.
Yeah, he's been asking for a long time. Yeah. So maybe you can get Chip to bite on it. I don't know.
Oh, really? Yeah, but you haven't been yet.
But he played quarterback in high school, so he's got some talent. But, yeah, I mean it's usually more the preseason. Sometimes maybe in the spring we can. But, to me, the spring is more about, improving the individual players, toolbox and skill set and allowing them to really focus on that. But yeah, I think when you get into goal line sets, short yardage sets, you got to have the right guy, especially at fullback. That's the one in particular that you got to make sure you have the right guy, especially when you don't typically recruit a fullback. So that's why you've seen us use Caden Curry, even Caden McDonald in the bowl game to do some of that stuff. But we'll see. We'll see if you can talk Chip into doing something down there.
We've got time for just a couple more. Bill Benowitz, this back.
Yeah, obviously the Alford thing caught you off guard, but you have a chance to really completely remake your offensive coaching staff really over the last couple of years. Brian's been here a while, but even he's a young coach. How good do you feel about the potential of this coaching staff with Chip, with a running backs coach you feel confident about? Because I know the last couple of years you've probably had to do more than you wanted to with a very young staff. How good do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be the best offensive staff in the country, and that's what our goal should be. Again, we're at Ohio State, so we want to have the best offensive line room, the best running backs room, the best DB room. We also have one of the best staff, and I think if we make the right hire here, we could do that. And like I said, I'm going to step back away from the offense, but at the same time, I'm still going to be around too. So I think it's exciting to still be a part of all of that. But watching Chip run it is going to be great. But yeah, I think when you look at the guys and the potential and the talent, and the mixture of experience and energy we have in the room, to me, when I look across the country at everybody else's staff, I feel like this has a chance to be the best one. So we want to make sure we hire the right guy because I think it's a special opportunity.
And at the center position, you were complimentary of Carson last time we talked. He had his struggles last year. You brought in Seth. Kind of where do you see that position right now?
Still early. Again, I could probably tell you more as we head into probably next week. But Seth's snaps have been great. I know that was a little bit of a concern. I think that had a lot to do with maybe the cadence or whatever. But so far, he's been doing great. Carson, for the most part, I don't think there was one issue with the snaps today. So that's critical. And then now they both have experience, so that's great. And then trying to figure out who the best 5 is will be important. But we'll evaluate it once we get on. You don't know about offensive linemen until the pads are on. You just don't. Today was a padded practice, but it was on and off for a reason. And then as we get some inside drill going, a few other things, we'll get a better idea. But they both have had good off seasons and good approaches. Well, we just I guess we're recruiting a punter. Yeah, I'm trying to remember where I'm at in all this. Yeah, right now we do have a couple punters on the team. We are looking at some other punters as well. It's the most political answer in the history of mankind right there.
Ryan, do you know who's going to throw tomorrow at Pro Day?
Yeah, I think the plan is for Will to throw and for Devin to throw both and be there for those guys because we do have several guys who are going to be running routes. Yep.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys. Yep.
One more thing on special teams. You said that Matt and James are handling those teams.
Yeah.
Are they also coaching the specialists, or is there someone else that works with the specialists?
Yeah. So in particular to their position, yeah. So Matt will be dealing with the punters, and then I'll be involved with those guys as well, kickers and all that. Yep.